Paleontologist rate 14 dinosaur attacks in the Jurassic Park movies. How real is it? I mean, I would say I'm a pretty big Jurassic Park fan and Star Wars fan and Harry Potter's fan. Out of all three, Jurassic Park, baby. I like Jurassic Park the most. I haven't really rewatched it, everything, but I've watched it so many times. It's just that, I mean, Jurassic Park, it's unlike Star Wars and unlike, Marvel, where there's so much movies. There's only a few, and the originals are always the better ones, in my opinion. If I'd rank the Jurassic Park movies, I would say the first one, then Lost World. No, the first one, Jurassic Park 3, Lost World, Jurassic World, Jurassic Kingdom, and then the Dominion. Am I missing one? If I'm missing one, let me know. I'm sorry. Like I said, I haven't watched this in like a year or so. I mean, I'm trying to get caught up on all the Marvel movies recently. And anyways, and I also wanted to talk about how I recently deleted a lot of my videos, and I only left some of my videos on my YouTube channel. And the reason why I put Jonathan's journalism post is because I want to have more educated videos, like stuff like this, like lions, first contact vitings, history, stuff like this, and then this. I accidentally deleted the other part to this, which was like how El Salvador was like getting rid of crime and everything like that. I deleted it by accident, but yeah, and then stuff like this and stuff, and like what's happening in the political world. So expect more of that, but let's get to the video. We need some dinosaur chicken nuggets.
So you can see the hands coming down to open it, and of course the hands do not operate that way. The accuracy of the actual model is really quite bad. My name's Dr. Dave Hone. I'm a paleontologist at Queen Mary University of London. I've been working on dinosaurs for about 20 years now. Today we're going to look at dinosaur attacks from the Jurassic Park movies and judge how real they are.
This is from 2 years ago.
Something like Gallimimus would evade a predator simply through pure speed. So this is one of the ones where for its time it's pretty good, but it's increasingly got dated. We now are very confident that the ornithomimosaurs as a whole would have been feathered. One thing I've noticed actually this time around is that they have a tendency for the feet to run parallel to one another, and they should actually start to swing into the midline as they take each step. You can see that from the footprints of these animals when they move at high speed. I think this has come from the animators. I've seen the footage. They're literally running around in the parking lot, and they videoed that and then use that to build the animal models. But
are you saying crazy to a grown man not having a shirt on? Nah, that's crazy.
Run quite the same way that dinosaurs do. So it's a very human-like running action and not quite a dinosaur-like running action.
This is actually one of my favorite scenes right here.
T-Rex was definitely an active hunter. The idea that it was just some kind of scavenger and couldn't hunt isn't true at all. It was hunting far more like a wolf than something like a cheetah. T-Rex is an efficient mover over long distances, so it's far more likely to just be wearing stuff down by just having a decent turn of speed that it can hold for a very long period of time.
Bet you never look at birds the same way again.
Just using the power bite that T-Rex has got is what you need to kill stuff. This is a T-Rex tooth. This is the root, so this would sit inside the jaw, but this is the crown sticking out in the mouth, which can then go into what it's trying to bite. And you can see that it's sharp, but it's also very, very thick and very, very strong. This will puncture through bone. I really do like the way it feeds, actually. That's something that we do have a much better handle on, and this is directly linked to what modern birds do. It's
there's always that conversation if humans would be here, if dinosaurs were still here. I think they would. But I mean, honestly, that's a whole evolution thing, and everything like that. I mean, we got birds, and they're closely related to dinosaurs, and there's other species that are closely related to dinosaurs. But I don't see why there wouldn't be a reason that a human wouldn't exist with dinosaurs not being exist. But I also haven't really looked into that. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think humans would exist? I mean, obviously we're not the top of the food chain, but I still think we would exist in some way. We'd probably be farming them for me or something. Like honestly, it could be a valid choice. Like you know, and honestly, we honestly probably could have existed and also gone extinct, but we also could have existed and still became smart in a way, and learned to coexist with dinosaurs. I don't know, or do the same thing that we done to other animals and make them go endangered and shit like that. I don't know.
Pinning the thing down with its foot and then coming in with the head and pulling back. And that's
I remember reading stuff about it,
but
but
also we've now got
could be
analyses
wrong.
of the muscle structure to show that this actually is probably how they dismembered carcasses. I'd give this one something like a 7.
Yeah, I agree. Yo, have you watched all the Jurassic Park movies?
Of a T-Rex. If you look at what our understanding of the animal was at the time, it's pretty good, but there's a few things with the shape and structure of the head and where the eyes sit that
It'd probably
aren't
taken us longer
great,
to
and
evolve,
our
though.
modern interpretation would definitely streamline that a bit. It would be a bit less gnarly, and in particular would have lips covering the teeth.
Okay, give me your top, out of all the Jurassic Park movies, give me your top, like, top to bottom, like all of them. Because there is Dominion, there's Fallen Kingdom, Jurassic World, Jurassic Park 1, Jurassic Lost World, Jurassic 3.
So it would not have the crocodile.
Might be missing one, but I don't know.
Wood does not shatter on impact from blunt force. That's not how wood works. It's never going to be able to like shatter a tree as it runs through it. It's far more likely to break its legs. A bunch of the big carnivores have relatively strong heads, and Tyrannosaurus
That's actually true. Why didn't I think of that?
is one of them, and it's actually been suggested that they might have
It's been
fought
long
one
since I
another,
watched
at
the
least in
movies.
part, by smashing their heads.
What's your
into
favorite
them.
one?
So it's totally something I can see it doing with a car like this. It may not be able to bite it very easily. It could presumably hit it with its head.
That was the first one. Do you remember like the second and third one or no?
We only have vague
Yeah.
estimates as to how quick these animals could really be. It is almost certainly moving way too fast in this clip to be even close to catching a Jeep. Footprints will give you an idea of the size of the foot, which will actually give you a good idea of the size of the animal, and then how far
time to
apart they
rewatch
are as
them,
its
bro.
stride length, and then how quick it might be moving.
Time
But
to
nowadays
rewatch
we'll
the
also
movies.
do complete muscle reconstructions, working out where all the muscles go on the animal, how big and heavy it was, how much power they can generate, and therefore how many steps they can take, and get an idea of how quick they are from that. I'd give this clip a 4. T-Rex is nothing like that fast. It would
Second
never
one
be able
just
to
Jeff
burst through a
Goldblum.
tree like that. It would just
Yeah.
break its leg. This isn't really gonna.
So the second one is basically just Jeff Goldblum, and he's the first person to go into the second island because there's Isla Nublar and then Isla Sonar, if I'm saying that correctly. And Isla Sonar was Sonar or Cerna, I don't know. Sorry, I literally haven't been watching. I forgot some stuff, but I didn't rewatch it. But like the Isla, I'm just gonna call it Isla S. was how they basically breeded a lot of the dinosaurs and they transported them to Isla Nublar. Cerna or Sonar? No, it's not Sonar. It's Cerna. Isla Cerna or whatever the fuck.
That happened.
I like Jurassic Park 3 a lot too, though. Isla Cerna, I think it's called. I don't know.
So the first problem they've got is that Velociraptor is really not that big at all. So even reaching up to a human height door handle is going to be a challenge for them. So you can see the hands coming down to open it, and of course the hands do not operate that way. And they could absolutely do that because the whole point of that claw being hinged up is it's like a cat claw. It is retracted, so it's held free from the ground. So as you walk around...
Essentially, parents lost a kid that was like well, there was a boat, and then I don't know what they're called. You know when you there's a boat and then you're like flying. They tie a rope to you and you're flying like a kite, and you're on the kite. You get what I'm trying to say? Because some people do that. So he was doing that around the island. So, you know, and Then eventually, somehow the boat crew dies. They get stuck on Isla Serna. What the fuck is it? Isla Serna, bro? Hold on. Let me see. Isla Serna. Sorna. Okay, Isla Sorna. So Isla Sorna, and they get stuck on the island, and they basically tell Dr. Grant, saying like, hey, you know, we got permission by the government of Cuba. I think it's Cuba, right? Because Cuba owns the islands, and they forbid people from even going over the island because of the dinosaurs. And he believed him, so he was like, okay, I'm going on this tour. They're gonna pay me a lot of money so I could keep up with my studies for dinosaurs, because he was a paleontologist, right? The study of dinosaurs. And he eventually, the reality was they were looking for their son, and they decide to land, and then a Spinosaurus comes around, and then the plane gets fucked, and then, you know, they get stuck, and then yeah.
And just normally walking and gripping the ground, you're not abrading the tip of the claw, so you're keeping it super, super sharp. You don't want to tap your claw all the time and give away where you are and what you're doing, and you're blunting the thing you've designed to evolve to keep as sharp as possible.
And you gotta remember, obviously this is Hollywood, and they make it like extra, but a lot of the stuff was meant to not be accurate. So there's a lot of inaccuracy when it comes to Jurassic Park, but still a good movie. And during the time, like, during the time, people were still learning about dinosaurs, and we still are today, and, you know, all that.
Those aren't very big strides. The name Velociraptor means speedy thief or speedy robber. They were quite quick, but they're quite quick for very small animals. They're not... Again, they're not super sprinters. I'd give this clip something like a 6, because the way it's hunting is really, really accurate. The accuracy of the actual model is really quite bad. And again, even for the time, even if you ignore the feathers, it's just 2.5 times the size it should be.
It's also not a good part.
So that dog, like, grabbing something and shaking it, I mean, maybe they could do it, but they certainly don't have any of the kind of specializations to do that from the muscles. And from what we see from the bites we have from T-Rex, from what we think are failed attacks where the animal has survived, because we can see healing on the bones afterwards, they're just simply taking one big bite out of things. So the bite power on the jaws and the strength of the teeth means they can just bite through, you know, even very, very large, thick bones. Velociraptor attacking a T-Rex, even at this scale in the movie, this is like a badger taking on a grizzly bear. You know, it's not going to end well. There is no way on earth they would attack something that size. So they're going to be taking, again, for real-world Velociraptor-sized stuff, they're going to be taking rabbit-sized or hare-sized or badger-sized prey. They are taking relatively small things that they're capable of completely overpowering with their size. We don't really know what dinosaurs sounded like. There's a bunch of ideas we can put on the table, because what do we know what things like crocodilians, the kind of noises that they make and how they produce them. It's things more like ostriches and actually things like chicken and ducks that make relatively simple sounds is what...
That was something made up by Jurassic Park.
Dinosaurs are going to be limited to. The roar is absolutely fine. That deep-bodied whole roar kind of noise is absolutely something a bunch of crocodiles already do. So there's no reason to think big dinosaurs couldn't do it.
Jurassic Park set a trend to some dinosaurs, like the Dilophosaurus shooting out poison when they really didn't.
3. There's the way they attack. They just wouldn't attack anything like that. They screech before you attack and alert the enemy. I think overall I'd give the original Jurassic Park something like a 7 for realism. If you remember what we knew at the time and what we had solid information on, it's actually still pretty good.
Yeah, so this is the Lost World right here. Ooh, I'm so happy they're going over all the movies. So this is Lost World. If you guys don't know, Stegosaurus is my favorite. I love fucking. I love Stegosaurus. Stegosaurus is my favorite dinosaur.
So the adult Stegosaurus are really very good. I think they're one of the best overall models in the entire franchise, except they're really too big. Not quite as bad as Velociraptor, but they should be about 2/3 of that size. Just don't think they're very quick. It's not their size that makes them slow, it's their build. Like, they're really weirdly back leg heavy. So they've got giant back legs, but their front legs are really quite small. The back legs are going to drive a lot of power, but the front legs are not going to provide much speed at all for a very big animal. I am not very quick, but I think I'd fancy my chances running away from one. I think if there was a big tree I could get behind, I think that would be your best bet. Tail spikes are obviously going to be used to stab something. The question is what? Because the obvious interpretation is this is an anti-predator defense.
Honestly, it's movies like Jurassic Park that made me really want to become a biologist, but the schooling to be a biologist just says I can't do it, bro. I can't go to school to be a biologist. I'm sorry, bro. One, it doesn't pay well. Two, it's like that saying, keep your hobbies away from your work. It's like you're sacrificing so much education, which is a great thing, but you're also losing so much money because the headache of actually obtaining a full-time position, learning about that, like it's not like the movies, you know. It's not like you're never gonna see a IRL dinosaur. You're obviously just gonna be scaling bones, and you're gonna be in the lab most of the time. And I didn't really realize that. I mean, I did realize obviously that like if you want to be a paleontologist or an actual wildlife biologist or something, like I like the fact that you would go out and everything like that, but then once I learned that the field is very competitive and the job market is like working at DD's or Ross, and it's hard to land a full-time position, and a lot of companies just use students because they know they want volunteer time, and it's just like, oh my god, it's sad that I didn't do it, but I'm actually happy I didn't do it because I'm just like, nah. Like now I'm doing a different degree in like political science and journalism and everything like that. People might say ironic because that also might not make a lot of money, but I think like I plan on working for the government, so you know, government or something else, and I just feel like it's still better than a wildlife biologist degree or a paleontology degree, in my opinion.
Fight off potential carnivores. But babies are much more vulnerable to carnivores than adults, and the babies don't have them. So it's more than a strong possibility that these are actually primarily used for fighting other Stegosaurus. The plates on Stegosaurus are one of those things that have been debated pretty much since it was first discovered, but I think we're increasingly coming round to the idea that these are basically display structures. They're often argued to be armor. They're not armor. They're not going to protect you. They don't protect your flanks.
I want to work for the IRS. Oh, hell no. See, if I'm working for the government, my plan is to work for like as a foreign diplomat or like some type of a government agency to work for like diplomatic like solutions or some type of organization that'll work on like different type of situations or maybe a journalism organization or something like that, you know, in some way, shape, or form. And you're always gonna find that in the world, you know. And even if I didn't, even if I like if even if I had like a backup plan, I could just go to my master's and I could do like counseling, right? And I could do like clinical mental health counseling, and that could be my backup plan for my master's. And I know for a fact that will make me money, and I'll be like good, you know, in the situation. Versus like in biology, it's just like, like you know what I'm saying. I would never. I mean, that's what I would plan to the degree. Yeah, that degree is versatile. Exactly. So it's just like, you know, I already have the thought process. Versus like in biology, it's like you can only do so much. And I think it's an amazing degree, and if you get a job full time, it's amazing. But you gotta really think about that. Like you gotta think about the risk on that shit, cause that's why you want like a broad. Like you gotta be ready to be in that lab, bro. And hell no, it's just not me. It's just not me.
With a rotten log like that, I'm absolutely sure the tail can go straight through it. What I'm less clear about is, like, it's got to rotate the tail right the way over to bring those spikes down, and the tail is fairly stiff. That's, you know, sweeping sideways is one thing, but, like, coming over the top, I really doubt they could do that. I'd give this clip about an 8. Other than the tail, like, flipping over and them being a bit too big, this is a really accurate depiction of probably how they defended themselves.
Oh, this is brutal.
So those are massively overly shrunk down. The original Compsognathus is about this big, with a head like this, and then we know that's a juvenile from the bone texture, so it would probably be an animal maybe this big. So, not like that. This is the opposite of the Velociraptor problem. This is
Imagine the small bites,
a quarter of the size it should be. And so how on earth you'd begin to piece together some kind of group hunting is impossible. And indeed, the Compsognathus fossil that we have has the bones of a lizard inside it, showing what it was last eating. So yeah, it's a generalized predator of small prey. Compsognathus, the real one, has a rather bigger head and rather bigger teeth than the model used here. But its head would be comparable to that of something like a modern house cat or a mid-sized monitor lizard or something like that, and they're more than capable of breaking the skin and giving you a very nasty bite. So yeah, that bit at least is vaguely realistic. He struggles to pick up a single one. They weigh about a pound each. Just roll around on the floor and crush them. I'm gonna have to give this clip something like a 3. But the idea that these tiny dinosaurs would just swarm over something human-sized, particularly something that they already know is a threat and can hurt them, is really unrealistic.
Don't move! Don't run!
Stop, drop, and roll.
The whole T-Rex's vision is based on movement is a nonsense built on a nonsense. It's just not true whatsoever. Standing still might be quite good because everyone running away is probably a bigger distraction, but I still probably wouldn't want to try it. T-Rex would have had pretty thick skin, but it's not going to be some kind of like armor that you can't penetrate with something like, you know, a well-powered dart of something like this with the right pneumatic weapon. I'm sure that would go straight into it. I imagine something like a rhino, which really does have kind of thickened skin, is probably going to have as thick as or similar levels of protection. Give it about a 7. The models are really nice and the way they move is really good. I think I'd probably give The Lost World overall a 7. The Stegosaurus is
So
really
the first one was
good.
8, right? This one was
just
7.
Generally, how they move and how they act is pretty cool.
This is Jurassic Park 3 right here.
Pteranodon was not picking up people with its feet. Their feet are, or indeed pterosaur feet as a whole, are structured really very similarly to ours. So if you try and pick up something big, like a dog with your feet, you are not going to be able to manage it with your toes. They don't have gripping feet or claws or anything like a bird of prey whatsoever, so it's now trying to lift double its mass. That would also compromise the way that it would fly. They're not doing anything like this at all. These are beak-feeding animals. They're much more like your average bird in that regard, flying down, grabbing something as it flies past. Well, they could probably fly out of the egg. Pterosaurs, we think, were what we call hyperprecocial. They are effectively active and functioning animals from the minute they hatch, or at least within a couple of hours or a couple of days, they could probably get up, run around, and even fly. So a nest like this with babies in it long term is not how we think they're reproducing. Really very large animals indeed, but pterosaurs are very lightweight. Even an animal this size would weigh less than a human, like 50 kilos. They're not very heavy at all, despite their huge size. The way they move on the ground in this is really, really accurate. This is how we think they walked. They were quadrupeds. They're walking on their hands and their feet like a really kind of giant upright bat. It's pretty much the only way you can realistically articulate the limbs to get them to stand and get them to walk. Really definitively, we have trackways and footprints that show them walking on all fours, and they have very distinctive shaped feet and hands. I'd give this one about a 5. They're really, really accurate and very, very good, but the way they act and behave is really unrealistic. I'm a Jurassic Park 3 semi-fan. I think it's a far, far better film than most people think it is. And some of the models are very, very good and very well done and move much more realistically and act much better than we've actually seen in the previous films, but there are some really clunky bits to it as well, so I'd probably give it a 6 overall.
But they didn't show the Spinosaurus. I thought they were gonna show the Spinosaurus, but they didn't show it, I guess, alright.
Ankylosaurs, they can absolutely hit big carnivorous dinosaurs with their tail clubs. It would have been something they could defend themselves with, but that's almost certainly not why they evolved. The actual armor
the Spino
and the
was
club
accurate.
Itself probably primarily evolved.
It was
to fight
accurate at the
other
time.
Ankylosaurs. This is a display of dominance. This is
feel like
competing
it
for
could be wrong.
territory or for mates or things like this, and that's
Because
why
the
they're built
Spino,
like that.
the Spino now is known to actually be very aquatic, and been proven to be more aquatic. So it was actually like it would fish a lot and stuff like that. So yeah, it was like during the time I feel like that's what people thought it looked like. I don't know. Ankylos are your favorite?
It's just a kind of bonus that they can then use it to defend themselves from predators. So the structure of the tail is such that you've got like the actual club, then you have what's called the handle, so this big long strip of really stiff and rigid bone, and then the main muscles there will pull the tail side to side. So it could probably move up and down a bit, but this is fundamentally a thing that swings side to side. And indeed, you know, the club kind of reaches a kind of slight side point. That's what you want to be swinging into your opponent, not hitting it with the flat of the underside. It's not a great representation of the tail. The whole tail appears to be flexible, so it doesn't appear to have the handle in there at all. And then the way it would carry it as a result of that is wrong. Indominus Rex flips it over, but then kills it by biting the armoured head, not the completely unarmoured rest of the entire dinosaur. The head of an ankylosaur is a solid block of bone. They even have a bony plate that sits on the eyelid, so when they close the eye, they have an eye shield. That's not the bit to bite. Giving this a 2, like, no part of this is really very realistic or convincing or accurate. Dimorphodon is particularly characterized by being like really short and blocky and kind of robust. The list of things wrong with that model starts at the tip of the nose and ends at the tip of the tail. It's f***ing dreadful. The fingers are in the wrong orientation, the leg shape is wrong, the wing shape is wrong, it's got the wrong number of toes, it's got these gripping feet which pterosaurs don't have, the tail is far too flexible and it looks like it's too long. As a predator, you're catching very small things with very quick reaction times. You need to be able to snap your jaws very quickly in order to be able to grab them and kill them. Velociraptor has something very similar. You have this real trade-off between speed and power, and they have gone for speed. You can see where the model starts going wrong with Dimorphodon in the teeth, because Dimorphodon literally means 2 types of teeth. And yet in this film it has 1 type of tooth. So that's not a great start. It should have a few of those fangs at the front, and then behind it should have a row of much, much smaller little teeth. We think it's a generalized small predator, so it's biting and killing, you know, rats and lizards and that sort of thing, killing them with those sharp teeth, breaking them up with those smaller teeth behind, and then swallowing them. I'll give it a 1 because you won't let me give it 0. There is nothing to like about this clip as a pterosaur researcher, other than it's got pterosaurs in it. For the first Jurassic World movie, it's a significant downgrade on the earlier ones. Most of the models are nothing like as good as you had even 20 years ago.
On it.
So I'm going to give it a 5. Baryonyx is a really cool, weird, interesting dinosaur. It would have been lovely to see something that's far less generic, or at least rather different to what we've seen from things like T-Rex, which we've seen so many times before. So it's a relative of Spinosaurus, which have these very, very long and narrow jaws and do have a something like a crocodile appearance. But in this model here, they've like squashed the head. That's not how the jaw articulations are built. There's no other dinosaur that can do something like that. I can't see why it'd particularly be beneficial. It's when you're trying to grab a fish. Opening it to 90 degrees does not help you grab a fish. Worse, it means there's loads of water in the way when you're trying to do that fast bite. That is a big, strong animal. I think in a wrestling match for a chair, you're going to lose. This is not a dinosaur that is going to be able to climb up a ladder. The arms can't reach that far forward. They don't hook like that. The arms are big and strong, but not strong enough to lift the body. So baryonyx are fundamentally fish eaters, so they're sticking their head into water and grabbing fish and eating them, but they also have these really strong arms with big claws, and to be honest, we're not very sure what they're doing with them. One possibility that I've suggested is that they're actually quite useful for digging things. They might be
if
good
you
at
want to
things
play
like
Lego
clawing
Jurassic
into
Park,
riverbanks, going after stuff like turtles and other things that might end up in the mud. I'd give this clip maybe a 4. It's a really interesting animal, and it's just a shame we don't really get to see it. Depending on your taxonomic interpretation, this is either a young Pachycephalosaurus or an adult Stygimoloch. I don't think it's going to get through that, but like a garden wall of one layer of bricks, yeah, I think they do it some real work. This is the skull of a little thing called Stegoceras. This is part of the same group. This entire top half of the skull is solid bone, absolutely solid. And then on top of that, there'd be some kind of cap of keratin to a horn-like sheath on top of that as well. So literally half the head is bone. That is going to be a solid dome, maybe this big. On a neck that is relatively set to be rigid and absorb a lot of force. So this is absolutely an animal that can lower its head and then deliver a huge amount of power in a straight line. If that thing is capable of going through a brick wall and it gets a full impact in your chest, I think your rib cage is basically gone. I can't imagine anyone would survive an impact like that. I mean, people get killed from single hits from things like sheep and goats if they catch you wrong, and this animal is capable of delivering a lot more power. I guess I'd give this an 8. I think it's maybe a bit extreme with the way it's getting through the walls and the busting the lock open, but it's a really nice model, and it is an animal delivering a lot of power with its head. Overall, Fallen Kingdom, I'm not a fan. A lot of the models are not very good. A lot of the behaviors are not very good.
Bro, it's
I'd
like,
give it a 5.
it's the start of like, and then going towards Jurassic World Dominion where they messed up. Not even gonna lie. They messed up pretty bad. Man, the movie's just, they just like went way backwards.
It's great that we're finally getting fully feathered dromaeosaurs, which should be fully feathered. The feathering is okay, but Pyroraptor is not a particularly big dromaeosaur. It's Velociraptor-ish sized again, and yet again it's been blown up to this giant animal.
I wish they could just be accurate with their animals, bro. It would make things way better.
There were species that occupied Arctic environments which were not dissimilar to what we see now in northern Russia or Scandinavia or Canada or northern parts of the US or on mountainsides where it would have been cold for much of the year, but there's a difference between, you know, surviving in cold conditions and diving and swimming in freezing water. There's an odd group of dromaeosaurs called the Halscaraptorines from Mongolia, and they are suggested to be quite good at swimming, but they are built rather differently. What you have here is an animal that's like swimming almost like a crocodile. Like its feathers are splayed out sideways, it's not paddling with its tail, and yet somehow moving at high speed. Pyroraptor's about as adapted for swimming as like a pigeon or a magpie. If you chuck it in the water, it's gonna thrash around and then drown. This is a 2.
Ah, this is amazing. The quail.
So
the quits. No,
has
what the hell is the
weird
Therosaurus?
giant claws.
I was thinking the quits. What the freak?
That gives it its name, scythe lizard. And we really don't know
dinosaur.
quite what they're doing with them. Our best interpretation is that these were actually something like we see in the giant ground sloths that were around even a few tens of thousands of years ago. Reaching up, hooking on branches, pulling stuff down, separating leaves, and making them accessible.
The Giga is so bad, bro. Holy fuck. I hate the way the Giga looks.
Very, very unusual, because although they're extremely long, they're also really quite thin. So they're not very strong.
I hope he talks about the
They
Giga.
would not be very good at, for example, stabbing through a Giganotosaurus and not just all snapping off. If you stab that into something and you hit something solid, like a bone, which is very likely when stabbing another large dinosaur, the claw is going to break. I really like the model. The big 3-way fight and the giant stabbing thing is really bad, like a 3. Dominion is really horribly unrealistic.
Dude, it's awful.
So many of the models are not good. So many of the actions are not good. Some of the things that are going on just don't make sense or work well at all. I'd give it a 3. My favorite dinosaur from the Jurassic Park movies is the Stegosaurus from The Lost World, the second one. I think it's a great model, a really nice animal. I like the color pattern, I like the design, I like the style of it. I generally like the way it behaves. I think it's really nice. More realistic dinosaurs, please. If you like this video, why not click on the next one?
I'm saying, bro, if they just add realistic dinosaurs, life would be a lot better. But anyways, guys, if you guys haven't, make sure to click the subscribe button, like, comment. Thank you for watching. Peace. Hey, man.